Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Masters Madrid officially begin today, and Sentinel's TenZ has given his thoughts on the comparison between their current team going into this event, arguably as the favourites, compared to their 2021 roster that won Masters Reykjavik in what feels like a very long time ago. TenZ says lots of parallels between the two teams, rumours as well about 100 Thieves, maybe or maybe not making a roster change. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Here are the guys, by the way, out in Madrid as of today, getting ready to go of course for their game tomorrow, but we'll discuss the matches here in the coming minutes. Firstly, roster stuff. This is going to be apparently the TSM roster. We saw some drama going on behind the scenes over the last few days as well with regard to TSM, and certainly I think Poise was getting involved in a lot of other stuff, but this is meant to be their team. GMD 7, Poised, Sim, a Proto. So they apparently are going to sign the back outside boys, come back into the scene. There's all these questions, right, about the way that Challengers has worked, because these organizations often were in challenges, but it's like, why as an organization, even if you want to compete in challenges, would you pay player salaries for 9, 10 months, 8, 9 months, whatever, to not even play any tournaments until Challenges starts again? Like, the format in Challenges needs to go for longer, because otherwise every year, every org is just going to pull out and then come back in eventually, which is effectively what we're seeing happen now. I know that Riot have said that they don't even massively care whether orgs are in there or not. They're quite happy, and even maybe they would prefer the team that wins challenges or wins Ascension and qualifies for the league to be an unsigned team, because then maybe Riot has more control on which organization it brings into its partnership program on that guest slot basis for the next couple of years. Whereas if they qualify with an organization, then that organization is in, even if Riot doesn't like that organization, and that organization might want to sell those players to another team, which is not what Riot wants to facilitate. And the reason why the Guard and the G2 thing only happens because the Guard were happy to just let them go, as opposed to actually selling them for money, which is kind of what Riot is trying to avoid here. But that is a thing to note. This is going to be the TSM team to our understanding. This is also Jake spotted scrimming with the YFP guys in challenges up against EG. So Jake is out of Cloud9, Rooney's coming in, Moose is coming in, obviously Whippy has already departed from that team, so that it seems is the situation. Jake is gone on the YFP guys with Jonah 6 and others at Bones. Obviously they're going to look to do quite well in challenges, scrimming EG last night. This, though, was also spotted, and as we can tell by Som's reaction, there was a question as to what this is looking like. Now, on the right-hand side, you can spot here the 100 Thieves guys not playing with Asuna. Now, that was the interesting point here, that was, okay, well, here's EU, here's Boostio, here's Zix and everything in the lobby, but Asuna isn't here. What's going on? Is Asuna gone? What exactly is the case? Now, it turns out I don't believe that's the case, and especially because the feeling has been that 100T are actually looking pretty damn good behind the scenes in practice. Like, yes, they lost in their group of death to Lev, and they lost to Sentinels. But nonetheless, 100T could still be the 4th best team in the Americas. Like, it's not impossible. They're probably not. But, you know, maybe they could be in that kind of ballpark. And I feel like they're confident their team can get better. My questions have been around Asuna, to be honest, for some time, just because Asuna has been a mainstay of this 100T team for years. They just haven't done much. So it feels to me that this is quite possibly the final Asuna iteration of the team. If the team needs to make further changes, I guess it depends what the team thinks, what Zix thinks as their new coach, but also what Boostio thinks as the IGL, who probably isn't going to be going anywhere. He's come in rather recently, and Asuna, obviously, talented player for sure, but the results haven't been there on Thieves. And would you be massively shocked if when they next decide to make a change, Asuna's the one to go? If they don't make big progress, no, I think it could be expected that might be the case. So people then saw him not scrimming with 100T and thought, wow, here we go. They're making a roster change. And again, this is a period in which they could do so over Masters Madrid. But it seems like Haley, which I think is his like girlfriend's account, I'm pretty sure he was playing on that instead as an alternate account and joining the game. So I think that's what was happening here. So you guys can see Cryo, Bang, Boostio, Haley, which we're pretty sure is Asuna. So I don't think this is happening yet. And especially if this is anything to go by, with them clearly scrimming Lev with Aspas and Tex. So Tex is still there, by the way, which is one thing to note, because there were rumours the other day that Lev were considering getting rid of Tex. But at the same time, if you're losing 19-4 to 100T, you might be thinking, damn, maybe it is about time that we make some sort of a change. So I don't think the 100T are making a change. The feeling has been that actually in practice they've been looking pretty good, and they looked solid in their group. It's just they came up against the most stacked group of all time, which was unfortunate. So they, I guess, are feeling decent going into the regular season, and if this is anything to go by, the 19-4 against Lev, then I think it's more Levia Ton you've got to think about making a roster change. Yes, it's just scrims, but come on. There's been rumours that Lev are thinking about it, and then we hear, we see this from last night, they're getting slammed in this practice. Who knows? And even Haley here was, in the chats kind of saying, just a funny Reddit thread, trying to bait people. So, apparently that was the game here from Asuna, that he was going into another account to try and play around, and obviously the Reddit thread got created to say that, oh, Asuna's gone, he's not been spotted and all this, but it seems like it was all a bit of misdirection for the time being. 100T, however, are not at Masters Madrid, but after Masters Madrid, this is the schedule for the VCT Americas where 100T will be playing, and I thought this is pretty funny really from James. They don't even try to hide it anymore. Now look, as I've said before, every team plays every other team over the course of the season, so maybe it doesn't matter. To some degree, some teams will get lucky, some teams will get unlucky because, let's say, Loud, they might be really good at the moment, they might fall off by May. They're probably not going to, but just as an example. So if you play Loud now, you might be in for a hard time. If you play Loud then, you might be in for an easier time. Could be the same with Crew or something. Crew might be kind of bad now, or Furia might be kind of bad now. Who knows, by the end of the season, there might be a top 5 team. So there's always going to be some luck involved when you play teams that can get better or worse over the course of a season, but everybody does play everybody else. So Riot probably have no problem at all with just deciding that some of the most interesting matches will come first. So some talk about Scrimbucks here as well, but this is the opening weekends of the Americas. And then, of course, really the good one, the final match of day one, NRG Loud. Right, so back in business again. To be honest, I thought this was going to happen at the playoffs for Masters Madrid. Never did, of course, however. SEN were the ones that played NRG. Loud played Evil Geniuses, of course, to qualify. But yeah, the old Optic Core effectively versus Loud, always a good time. That's going to be on the opening day. Then G2EG, then SEN 100T. Right, so I think both of these final games of the day probably designed for the maximum possible interest, and fair enough. This, by the way, is how things trend going forward. So it all begins on the, if I scroll back to the start here, the 6th of April with this game. This is like my time zone, by the way, so just to kind of show you guys why it's going to a different day. But as I scroll down, if you guys, you feel free to pause or anything, they've got the entire schedule up here at this point. So they showed the opening weekends on the website or on that graphic that we just saw, but these are all the games over the course of the season. And at this point, it becomes to be determined because that is when the playoffs begin. NRG, of course, saying get ready to be quiet at Loud because they're ready to go. Now, look, it's still a while away, right? We've got Masters Madrid, then this happens in the early part of April, but, Chet's like, all right, I'm going to pretend I didn't read that because Loud are looking pretty strong right now, but of course, Sentinels have some decent experience taking down Loud as we saw in the grand finals there, so we'll see if that replicates itself when the time comes. Also, did want to say on Sentinels, though, some discussion from Media Day, right? So Madrid starts today, they did a Media Day, people phone in, they ask their questions, and Ocelot kind of puts together here his takeaways of the day, says there wasn't really that much said, to be fair, but I thought these were a few things that are worthy of note. Team Heretics are looking forward to playing Sentinels, they're happy to face them, of course that's going to happen tomorrow. Loud and Sen think the regions are now very close in skill level, even Edward think that China's already better in aiming than the other regions, but like discipline, I think they said that another 3 years could be a different story on that front. FPX are feeling confident against KC after reviewing their VODs, so we'll see about that. Gen.G undefeated in scrim since arriving in Madrid, of course the champions of the Pacific side. KC have been impressed by Gen.G the most in scrims, impressed by EDG, so feels like this might be a more entertaining tournament. Okay, it's going to be entertaining, obviously, but it might be closer and harder to predict than some of us feel. And this is what TenZ had to say on a comparison between the current Sentinels team and the former 2021 iteration that won in Masters Reykjavik.
In doing so, I want to know how you compare the 2021 Sentinels team, the team that scaled the mountain and reached the top in Masters Reykjavik and then appeared in subsequent international lands. How do you compare that roster with this one, given the fact that you guys have managed to, or more specifically, you managed to regain a domestic title and have managed to qualify for an international event after around 3 years. So how do you compare 2021 and this iteration?
Yeah. Like a previous question earlier, the state of the game was a lot different. So In the previous iteration of Sentinels, we definitely thrived in that more chaotic environment, especially with me and Sick sharing like duelist roles, or me and Shaz sharing duelist roles. So we kind of found our own identity in that like current meta, and I think that's what made us really strong. Sure, we didn't play as many scrims as other teams, but we did trust each other as a team. We were really confident as a team, and I think overall that's what led to our success. Now, looking at to this year, I would say we have really, really good teamwork. We understand the game a lot better than what previous years would be. And I think as a team, we understand each other and we trust each other a lot. And I would say like recently this current iteration of Sentinels has been giving me more like, what is the word? Not necessarily like flashbacks, but it feels nostalgic to have this level of confidence moving into future matches.
So interesting for TenZ to say, right, because he is the only common denominator of that team, right? I mean, the organization is the same organization, but in many ways, they're quite a different entity than they were several years ago now, in all the changes that have been made. All the players, the coaching staff, like everything is basically different apart from TenZ pretty much within this team. And it's interesting to hear TenZ draw some parallels. The game is very different now, of course, to what it was when TenZ was dominating on the Jets back in Masters Reykjavik with one of the greatest individual performances ever. But in terms of a team perspective, the culture, the chemistry, everything like that, and he says that he's getting rather nostalgic, feeling about this current team to what was happening back then. So is that a sign that SEN are going to win this tournament? They are arguably the favourites to do so, but there are clearly much competition in this league as it presently stands. These are the prize pools, the numbers, the VCT points as well, only for the winner. I think is kind of strange that even if you come second this tournament, you don't get any points towards qualifying for champions. Loud could theoretically come second in Americas, second here, and still be no closer to championship qualification than, let's say Krua, who got slammed out at the kickoff immediately, didn't even go to Masters Madrid. So, toys, game day, as he says, because here we go. Things are kicking off as of today. KC, FPX, Gen.G, Loud. So this is really interesting. Like, KC feel confident, I'm sure, against FPX. FPX say, well, we've reviewed your VOD, we might be able to do some damage. But theoretically, that is probably the most one-sided game of the group stages on the evidence we've seen. Gen.G, Loud, though, I'm actually really fascinated for, because this is the game that might well say quite a lot. Are Gen.G as good as we think they might be? Beating PaperX, beating DRX in the Pacific, they're clearly a very scary team. How are they going to compare to Loud? Massively interesting game here, I would say, the first game or the second game of the day. And then, of course, tomorrow, EDG PaperX, Sentinels Team Heretics to finish out the very first round of these Swiss system group stages. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.